Hello, and welcome to the German New Medicine Stories podcast. Please note that nothing that I or any of my guests say here is or should be misinterpreted as medical information or advice. These are personal stories, not prescriptions. So today we have Emily on the show with three really fun stories. So the first one is super amazing. It's about how she resolved her chronic pain, really, long-term chronic pain that was very debilitating, would often result in her walking with a cane, but basically had sort of an instantaneous resolution once all the dots clicked for her. So it's the first story, and then the second story is about psoriasis related to nursing her little boy. And then the last story is just a really great example of a flu and kind of intense fever type symptoms. So yeah, definitely listen all the way through. It was a really fun interview, and I'm excited to share.
So I'm Emily. I am 30 years old as of this year. I have two kids, a daughter, she's 6, and my son, who's 2. We live off grid in rural New Brunswick. We have for the last almost 5 years. I am a former RPN from Ontario, actually. So I used to work in the medical field. I specified in addiction, so I help people detox and get back on their feet. Um, However, once I became a mother, it kind of became really clear to me where I wanted to spend more of my energy and where my time was most needed. Pandemic hit, and I just decided, okay, I'm going to leave this behind. It's not really for me anymore. I have a lot of great skills from it, but it's not something I want to continue. So I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. We eventually moved to New Brunswick, went off grid. We have a whole homestead now. Um, and throughout all of those transitions and everything transpiring is when I started learning about GNM. I first learned about it from a friend online through Instagram, I believe. She started talking about it, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Having a medical background, it was like, things aren't contagious. What do
Yeah.
you mean it's just trauma? Like, I totally believe that like trauma has impact on the body, but not the way that GNM describes it. So I was like, I don't know. I was pretty skeptical of it. And then I started looking into it because she kept talking about it. And I was like, okay, let's see what this is. And then I went down the rabbit hole and I haven't left it since. It took about 3 years. And then I took your Sherlocking course. I had, scoured the GNM website with, all of my own symptoms from family members, just, trying to absorb as much as I could, and I wanted to be able to apply it more. And I saw your course come up, so I decided to take it. And that's how I was actually able to figure out my chronic arthritis pain. When I was when I was 17, I was in a car accident. I It was in the middle of the winter. I was on some back roads. My car spun out. I totaled it. I ended up breaking my left foot in 4 spots.
Mm.
I broke the lateral malleolus. That's the bone that kind of like sticks out on the outside of your foot. And then in one spot, and I broke my talus in 3 separate spots.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah, it wasn't great. My wheel like came up into my car. It was super traumatic. You would think that would be the DHS, but I actually don't think that was the original DHS. That was just a shitty moment in time. And so I had broken it, and through that, you go get your cast and you get all the x-rays and blah blah blah, and they wanted to send me to an orthopedic specialist. They said, it's pretty broken, we're not sure what to do with it, we're going to send you to a specialist. Okay, so you wait however long, get in, and I see this orthopedic specialist, and he looks at me and he goes, what did you do?
Oh.
And I was like, well, I was in a car accident, and I explained what happened. And he was like, I've never seen something broken like this. And I was like, oh, okay, so what do we do? And he's like, I can't do anything. I was
Wow.
like, what do you mean? I was like, you can't operate on it? You can't, like, what do you mean? And he was like, I can't do anything. He's like, you just have to let it heal, and you're going to do physio, and you'll probably have lack of mobility, and you might have pain. And I was like, okay. So there's 17-year-old me, and I'm like, what? What do
Yeah.
you mean? So either that was I think that would have been the original DHS, is when the specialist was like, I can't fix this. And I
Yeah.
and I literally thought my foot was permanently messed up for the rest of my life. I was like, I have a bad foot. I'm 17, almost 18 years old, and I'm being told that, I'm gonna have lack of mobility. I'm gonna have, XYZ. I was like, what? No way. I was like, I'm too young for that. That's not acceptable to me. I couldn't accept it. I really couldn't accept it. So on and off until I was about 19, I had pain. It wasn't severe, but it was
And then
definitely there. And
was that original healing process, like from the after you like were in the like, did you get a surgery and like have a cast?
no, there was no surgery. They had one of them big plaster casts for the first like week until they put me in a boot cast. I was not allowed to walk on it for, I think I was on crutches for 9 weeks.
Mhm.
And then we started physio, and I was in physio for about 3 months. And I
Mhm.
was out of the boot cast by about 12 weeks after the break. And then I continued physio for a little while, which was awful, super painful.
Mhm.
And then I stopped physio, and there was like, there still is a lack of mobility. And I think that came with however I broke it, whatever's fused in there. But there was a chronic pain, and there was this chronic stiffness, and it, sometimes it would be more intense, and then other times it would like almost not even be there. And
Right.
so I was like, well, if there's times where it's not there, I was like, why is there times where there's no pain and times where there is pain? I was like, this
Big,
doesn't make
big
sense to me.
unanswerable question.
Yeah, I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. And then sometimes I would have pain when it didn't make sense to have pain, where it was like, I had had a sedentary day or
Yeah.
whatever, and I'd get up and walk around, and I'd be like, whoa, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And it was like, where did this come from? It
Did you
really
did
didn't.
you notice those like contradictions back then, or was it until you found GNM that you kind of thought
No,
of?
I definitely noticed them back then.
Yeah.
I had no idea why they were there, but they were the reason why I struggled to accept the fact. I was like, you can't tell me I have chronic pain, chronic arthritis, when there are times where I don't have pain, where it's
Right.
almost as if there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, I'm walking with a cane for a few weeks. And it was like, I was young. I was 17, almost 18.
Yeah.
By the time I was 19, I was intermittently, I think I was using a cane then. It was
Wow.
it was a
Which is
yeah, it
also
was a
like what a massive identity thing to deal with when you're 19.
yeah, it wasn't like, and like people look at you weird. It was weird. I wasn't comfortable. And I was starting, was it call it? I was 19. So yeah, I was starting nursing college then. Or I was in like my pre-health or something like that. So I was using a cane intermittently, and it was like, you know, I was too young for that. I was like, this is not okay. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna work this out of me. So I started working out, and I realized as I strengthened my body, I had a little more mobility. It was easier to get around. I did have a little less pain. But I would still have, like, there would be bouts. It would come in like waves, where, like, I'd go for a few weeks and I'd be all right, and then all of a sudden there'd be a week where it's like, no, we're not going anywhere. And I knew there were certain activities that, like, I would not partake in. Like, I would not run. No way in hell would you catch me running or jogging or jumping off of something, like any type of like high impact. No,
Yeah.
thank you. I was like, it's a brittle, broken thing. I was like, we can't, nope, it's no good anymore. I can't use it like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's no good. Doctor said it's no good. And so during that time when I was 19 and I was having the pain and I was walking with a cane at the time, I went back to the specialist
Hmm.
and I said, take an x-ray, look at this, tell me something different, please. And he took a new x-ray and he said, no, you have arthritis developing. And I was like, fuck you,
I
man.
mean,
I was like, no way.
up
I
to
was like,
up
no.
to yeah.
Like, I had a really hard time accepting it. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going back to him. I don't like him.
Yeah.
And you, from 19 until, well, last year I would have been 29. So
Hmm.
until 29, I went through, it was a roller coaster. Usually there was some element of, like, I could feel some element of stiffness and inflammation and like discomfort, but I could ignore it and move on.
Yeah.
And then there would be, days or weeks where it was excruciating, where like I couldn't walk properly, I would need assistance and things like that. And it was just a wave, and I never noticed a pattern. I didn't even think to look for a pattern. I was just like, there's times where it doesn't hurt and there's times where it does, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You learning about GNM, I went right to self deval. I was like, what is this? So I started diving into it, and it didn't click right away. Like, it
Yeah.
really didn't click right away. I'd read through things, and I was like I understood the fact, because I was constantly saying, this is my bad foot. This, I can't do things with it. I understood that that had an impact, but I wasn't sure how to go about it.
Yeah.
And so, through the awareness, I actively started to like stop calling it that.
Mm.
And I would, I stopped trying to like limit myself to it. Um, but I really like, it was still there. The pain was still there. And then whenever you posted the self-devaluation videos for cohort 4, I'm pretty sure I watched it within a day or two of you posting it. And it was literally the first time I watched it that it all clicked. You mentioned that bones heal stronger after once they've gone through the process of softening and mending, they actually heal stronger. For whatever reason, I was like, wait a minute. So it's not really weak down there. I was like, that bone's strong as fuck.
Yeah.
I was
I mean,
like,
I bet if you took like some kind of bone density test, or like, that it would be like remarkably strong compared to the other one.
having that connection, it was just like, wait a minute. I was like, this foot isn't weak. I
Mm.
was like, it's been broken, but it's way stronger than what it would have been. I was like, yeah, maybe there's some lack of mobility.
Yeah.
But I feel there could be like some snowballed motor conflicts on top of that from feeling stuck with this foot at the same time. Um, so that it clicked something where I was like, well, wait a minute. And then hearing that pain was the healing phase, that the pain meant that, I had that confidence boost, that something good had happened. And I started rephrasing what pain was in my mind. So when I realized that I was starting, I whether I needed assistance or I was starting to hobble around the house or I was just achy, it was like, this is a good thing. And I was starting, because we were Sherlocking at the time, and I was starting to be like, okay, well, what happened? What
Mm.
did I accomplish that I thought I couldn't accomplish? But I did.
And did you find something?
I usually had to do with keeping up with the kids. Because if I had a flare up where I was like hobbling around with a cane, like it's not easy to chase after a 1.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, right? And my
Yeah.
kids, like, they're pretty feral, so they're pretty wild. So I think a lot of my loops were, how am I going to keep up with them? What
Mm.
if I can't run after them? What if I can't get them on time and they get hurt, or those are rational thoughts mothers have. What if somebody takes them and I can't get to them on time? You know what I mean? That was one of my loops, was like, how am I going to do this? I'm not going to be able to do this. And another one is, we have a whole homestead here. Like, we take care of almost 100 animals.
Yeah.
So it's, am I going to be able to, get all the tasks done? How am I going to do this? What if I can't do it? What if my foot starts to hurt? What if, something goes wrong? What if I just move it the wrong way? God forbid, because I didn't have an explanation for the pain.
Yeah.
It just showed up, right? Because I hadn't Sherlocked at that point. So it was just that constant fear of like, when is this pain
Right.
going to
It's gonna
come?
come out of nowhere, like randomly, and okay.
And it's going to be at the most inconvenient time where I need to be able to do something. And so August, I'm
And
pretty
so
sure it
then
was.
we basically started to observe that the pain would come after you were able to finish the chores. You
Yes.
had ran with your kid and it was fine. And then
Yes.
steps came. Yeah.
Yes. And that's when the pain would come. And so I started connecting those dots, and I was like, okay, so I've completed something. I've shown to myself that I can actually do it regardless of what this fucking doctor had said, that my foot's all messed up and no good and blah, blah, blah. And then I would see the pain. And so because I started observing the pattern, it was like, oh, this is really obvious. Like, I was like, well, if this is so obvious, I was like, then obviously, I was like, it's not as messed up as I thought it was. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And so
Yeah.
by connecting those dots, it was almost instantly, because when I had watched that self-deval video, I had been in my longest flare-up that I'd ever had.
Oh,
It
really?
had been like, yeah, I it had been about 2 months of walking with a cane. Like I was in excruciating pain. Like I was, if I didn't have to walk, I wasn't going to. um and like I couldn't even like move my foot. It was so inflamed and stiff. Like it was awful, and it was because I had just spent 11 days on my own running the farm with toddler in tow. So then when my husband got, it started about 2 days before my husband got home.
Oh, that
the
makes
pain
so much
start the
sense.
pain started because I had realized, it's like, wow, you know what? And it was a confidence
I'm the
boost.
fucking boss.
I'm
I'm
a
just trying
boss.
to
I was
schedule
like,
myself and
I
look
just
after.
handled. I was like, I milked the goats every morning. I got the chicken, the quail, the ducks, the rabbits, everybody fed, toddler fed, me fed. I was like, I'm a boss, man. I was like, well, look how much I can do. And this
Yeah.
was probably about 2 days before he got home. And that's when the pain started. And I was like,
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense why you would have a huge.
yeah. And it was massive. And so the pain went on for quite a while. And then I watched your self devalue video. And
Yeah.
probably within about, I want to say, an hour, it started to go away, and I was like, no way. So I just observed it, because it was pretty much right after that self deval video, and I observed it, and I was like, no way. The inflammation started to go down, the pain started to go away, and I was like, there's no way. And so every now and again, when I'd start to notice that, it was getting a little more achy, I started to pay attention. What have I been telling myself that I can't do?
Hmm.
Where have I been telling myself that I can't keep up? And where did I actually get it done? And usually I could connect it. And now it's been, a year roughly ish since
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And I I don't remember the last time I was like, down and out, where I was hobbling around the house or required assistance or anything. Like every now and again, you step wrong, it was like, oh, okay, that hurts. And I would take a minute. Pain's a good thing. I obviously did something I was supposed to do. And then I'd carry on with my life. And it's been great, because after you've lived with chronic pain for that long, and then to just not have it, it was a huge relief. It was really weird, because you're like, okay, where is it? I kept
Yeah.
looking for it. I was like, where's this? When's it gonna pop up? But then I
Yeah.
kept telling myself, it doesn't have to.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to. I was like, I'm totally capable. My body is totally strong. I was like, there's nothing wrong with this foot. I was
Hmm.
like, dude had no idea. Well, maybe he knew something of what he was talking about, but not in the aspects of how I know it now. I was
Yeah.
like, and it went away.
Wow,
It went away.
that's such an amazing story. So cool.
It was really cool to see it happen and like be totally aware of it in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, so cool. And it was because we were in the course at the time of doing it. So I
Yeah.
was like, I was right into like trying to figure out my patterns. I had started writing it all down, because you said, write down when you have pain, write down when you have this, right? And so I started really tracking and really paying attention, and then all of a sudden the dots all connected. And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like, oh, so that's what that is.
Yeah.
And it's like, so pain isn't this awful bad thing that we need to run from. My body is doing exactly what it is supposed to be doing right now. And it'll be great when it's done. It'll be even stronger when this bout of pain is over, and I will be that much better off. And so I kind of kept that mentality, and since then I have not had any flare-ups. Every now and again there might be a little bit of stiffness, but it's really obvious for me to clue into, okay, what was I thinking about? Where was I limiting myself in my mobility? Because a lot of it has to do with my mobility and keeping
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically with kids. Because I remember what during that appointment when I was 19, and he was like, you have arthritis, and I was like, how the fuck am I going to keep up with kids when I go to have kids? And I remember that thought. And so I'm
Interesting.
guessing that became some sort of track, because I
Yeah.
remember being like, but what if I want to have children? Like, how am I going to keep up with them? Like, if here, and I pictured myself like this old granny, like hobbling around with a cane. And that's how I envisioned myself at,
Yeah.
between 17 and 19, was this person with hobbling around with a cane. And that's what transpired,
Yeah.
is I would have bouts where I had to use assistance, because that's what I believed I was supposed to be like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, it was
what
neat.
an amazing story. I can't wait for people to hear it because like I just know this is so common. Like it is so common after
Yes.
an accident and an injury for something to last then a lifetime, not because of the, physical like damage to the body itself, but because of the self-evaluation and then motor conflict, the loop that starts
Yes.
running after.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
it's just so
it
common.
definitely snowballed because I I haven't Sherlocked it a whole lot, but I definitely believe that after the self-deval with the arthritis and everything, that I had a motor conflict on top of it. Because there would be a different type of sensation, a different type of pain, and a different type of stiffness. And I could tell the difference. And
Yeah.
that's why I was like, well, why is it like this sometimes, but like this at other times, and then no pain? And it really it my brain could not accept the fact that it was just messed up. I was like, if it's messed up, it's always messed up. I don't have good days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if the foot's messed up,
It
then
is a
wouldn't
funny
it?
thing that we like are meant to accept that. Because I mean, I had the same thing with my chronic pain. Like,
Yeah,
why would it just come and go? And why would
yeah.
sometimes, yeah, it was the motor conflict pain and sometimes it was a self-evaluation.
Hmm.
Now it's all so clear to me, but um, it's just like there is no explanation for that. But it's just you're just
No.
meant to accept it with me as no explanation at all, that it just happens randomly. And like you say, when you know how to look for the pattern is very easy to observe. Like it's not
Yes.
you don't need to be a genius, it's just
No.
like you need like a
No.
very basic set of questions and a structure to like work through, and then quickly it becomes clear what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it was super clear. It literally took, I think the self-deval video was 10 or 11 minutes long.
Mhm.
And by the end of it, my whole brain, it was just
Yeah.
like the universe had been opened up. And I was like, I don't have to live with this pain.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I was
Yeah.
like, it doesn't have to be chronic anymore. And I had like having that realization of like, it is strong and it is fine, and I don't have to live in pain anymore. There's an explanation right here. This is exactly what my body is doing. It
Yeah.
just clicked it all into place, and within an hour, I noticed it. Like the sensations decreased, and it was like, whoa, like no way. And so then you sit there, I'm like, almost in disbelief, like, okay, it's got to come back though, right? And so I start looking for it, but then that pattern
Yeah.
was so obvious now. Was like, oh, there's the thought, oh, there's the pain. And once I was able to really like see that pattern, it was pretty easy to stop it. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not subscribing to this anymore.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe. I'm not about it anymore. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
And since then it's been like I for the most part it's normal.
Yeah.
Normal in quotations, whatever normal may be for people.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, even just for me personally, like, 'cause, my experience with
Hmm.
chronic pain, I mean, different areas of the body, different, I mean, I was never like crippled to the extent it sounds like you were in terms of not being able to walk or anything. But like, I'm just, oh, like feeling like, wow, what if I had learned all of this when it first started when I was like
Right?
17, or I mean, it was actually younger, than,
Right?
like, early teens when it started, because like I can still see how now, even though I don't experience the pain anymore, like I have resolved it, there is still like this way that I like sort of think about myself as like a weak person. Like I don't have a like
Hmm.
because it's like it gets so like ingrained in your system after so many years of like
It
being
does.
not being able to do what other people are doing, that yeah, I'm just like, wow, just
Well,
the freedom you could have from those stories.
becomes part of the identity, right? That pain and that chronicness becomes part of the identity. Like, this is me. This is what I have to be for the rest of my life. And I think that's why I had that little old lady envisioned walking around with a cane. That I was like, that's gonna be me. And that's inevitable. And I don't get to avoid that. I don't get to avoid that. And that was my belief. And then, you know, Q learning more about GNM, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that doesn't have to be my
You
belief.
need to
I
go
get to
back to
change
that
that.
doctor.
Yeah, I'm not subscribing to it anymore. I was like, mm-mm, because it really didn't I could not accept the fact that I was as
Yeah.
young as I am in chronic pain. I was like, no, I'm not accepting that. I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that story. Should we shift to the psoriasis then?
Sure, sure. So it's like I said before, it's not 100% healed, but it's like barely even there.
Mhm.
So probably about 8 months ago, I started with a teeny tiny little dry patch of skin just on the outside of right by your armpit line on the back side. And I was like, well, what is this? I didn't really think much of it, really didn't bother me. And then it started getting bigger and redder and flakier and weepier. And it like spread into my armpit and was like almost coming up onto my chest. And I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. So I had to start Sherlocking it because I was like, well, I don't really subscribe to the conventional medicine anymore. I'm not going to get cortisone creams unless, I'm in dire need. So I was like, what's going on here? And I figured it out. It had to do with wanting to wean my son. He he's 2.5 now, and this started before he turned 2, was when the rash started. But he likes to use me as a soother. We've co-slept, we've breastfed the whole time. Co-sleeping is new for me this time around. It's not what I did for the first time around with my daughter. Um, and so being a soother all night was new to me. And I was very accepting of it at the start. No worries. We all got to sleep. But then they get bigger and they get kickier and they suck harder and they bite and whatever it may be. And so I got to the point where I was like, I need you to let go of me. I don't want to do this anymore. But I also didn't want to not wean him because I like snuggling with him and I like that relationship with him. And I really wanted, I like those snuggles, but I just don't want to be a soother all night. And
Right.
so that's where my conflict happened was I don't want to be a soother all night. I don't want to do this anymore. Um, but I still like our closeness. I still want to be close. You just stop nursing on me. It was a very specific of at this time, do not touch me.
Yeah.
You're okay now, but at this time, do not touch me.
Yeah.
And
Was there anything um around like I should keep doing this?
yes,
My first son
yes.
didn't, and
There's
now
very
he's doing this.
Yeah, very much so. I have the thought pattern. I was like, well, if he didn't need it, he wouldn't want it.
Mm.
And so I feel obligated, like I have to give this to him. Like he still requires it because obviously he's still wanting it. And who am I to say to take away his biggest comfort just because I'm uncomfortable? Like I'm his mother, yes, and I deserve to, be comfortable. But at the same time, I'm the mother. At some point, I'm gonna have to put my feelings aside and take care of his needs. That's that's just how I look at it. I'm the adult. He's the child. He can't provide those things for himself yet. That's up to me, right? And so it was very much so of I should be providing this for him. I still need to do this for him, but I don't want to. I don't want to. Not in this moment anyways. And it was very much so around bedtime.
Yeah.
Like throughout the night. Like I didn't care to nurse him
And
during the
if
day.
I'm remembering, like you would wake up and it was worse in the mornings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the mornings when I'd get out of bed is when it would be like bright red and like super weepy. And then I would start getting itchy and I'd be kind of itchy throughout the day. And then I wouldn't itch when I was putting him for a nap because I'm trapped in bed again. And then it wouldn't bother me too much until after I got him to bed. So at nighttime when I would get him to bed and I'd sneak out of the room because I'm trying to, I want to go have time to myself. That's when I would get like really itchy and weepy and like
So,
uncomfortable.
so for people listening, so itching, we're looking at a healing face symptom. So this was
Hmm.
like so before, let's say with the self-evaluation program, you were looking at the pain comes when you've entered the healing phase, when you've resolved the conflict. Here, one of the things you could look for to see when you were, coming out of conflict activity was the itching. And so the itching was occurring after the nap and, after you got some time to yourself because he was down for the night. Um, and then also, in case people don't know, so psoriasis is a double separation conflict. So it's, just a way of thinking about it, it would be like the same as eczema, but there's like like a bigger contradiction, I think you could say. Like
Hmm.
this push-pull sensation, right? It's like I both like want to be really close to my son and I want him to get like
Yes.
1,000 miles away from me at the same time.
And it was like intense,
Yeah.
like super intense. It's
And
not
so
like
basically,
a
I'm
kids
guessing your
don't touch
experience
me.
was that while you were nursing him, like constant rumination about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it was like I don't want to be here anymore. Like just get off of me. Let go. Like I don't want to do this. Stop touching me. And it was a constant. And it flares up when I really get stuck in my head and I sit there and I ruminate about it. So that was when I started noticing the itching because we did that Q&A, and for whatever reason I had thought itching was part of being conflict active for some reason. So when you corrected me and I realized that was part of the healing phase, it enabled me to really start like Sherlocking it more properly and be like, oh, there's the pattern. And that's when I realized the room, like I knew the ruminating thoughts were there, but I just like wasn't conscious of them. I wasn't like, oh, this is the conflict.
Mhm.
They were just there and I was in them and it
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
So once I became really aware of it, I started like, okay, well, where can I find this solution? So because it was only on my left side, I was like, what happens? Because I would get really comfortable laying on my left side, and I was like, what happens if I lay on my right side? Well, did it not go to my right side?
Right. The
So then
rational
it
is to
can
the right hand side.
yes, yeah, in the exact same spot. It almost looked the exact same,
Yeah.
just on the right side. And then one side would get worse than the other, and one side would get better, and it would go back and forth.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, well, that's not working.
Mhm.
That's not great. This is uncomfortable. Now I have it on both of my armpits. It's like, this sucks. And so I was like, okay, well, here are my ruminating thoughts. How can I stop my ruminating thoughts? I was like, I'm
You
not
had,
willing to wean yet.
you had decided like practically you weren't willing to wean.
Yes, I was not willing to wean as much as I would still love to, because we still haven't. Um, as much as I would love to, I'm just not willing to yet.
Yeah.
I'm not, I obviously haven't, I don't know, I'm not at the point where I can actually put my foot down and say no
Yeah.
and stick to it.
Yeah.
So that tells me that I'm also apparently not ready. And so I was like, well, what other solutions can I do if I'm not going to wean him? Because the practical solution would be to wean him. But like we're talking about like hours of crying and screaming, and I'm not up for that. I'm just not up for that. So I need a different solution. So I thought, well, in the moment, while I'm laying in bed and I'm ruminating, a lot of it has to do with because I want to go do something else. I don't want to be in bed here nursing, and as a soother, I want to go do something else.
Yeah.
Like either I want to go watch my show or read a book or whatever it may be. So it's like, okay, well, how can I do something else and provide that for me while still nursing him? And so I've always been a reader, but since I've become a mom, I was sticking to audiobooks. Well, if I listen to an audiobook in bed, I'm going to sleep. And I was like, okay, well, this could be my opportunity to read like a physical book. And I was like, well, why don't I just start getting back into, reading? And so I picked up some old books that, I hadn't read in a while, but they were good favorites that I knew I could get really sucked into. And because I was so much more focused on that and than I was on being stuck in bed, it no longer was bothering me as much and I wasn't ruminating about it. And so I started looking forward to the fact that, oh, I get to go read my book now. And so it probably took about 2 months of being consistent with not being on my phone, because I think being stuck on my phone had a part in it. Being like, oh, look at all them fun people doing stuff. I don't want to be stuck in bed. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And so I started reading my books. And I think because I was starting to look forward to actually getting to lay down, read a book, it didn't bother me anymore that I was stuck in bed as a soother. And although I haven't weaned him and I still want to, the rash is probably like 90-95% gone. Where it was used to be red and inflamed, and I mean like raised and inflamed and weepy, and like it was just not a pretty sight. Like my husband was like, "Are you sure you don't want to get that checked out?" He's like, "That looks pretty bad." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "No, I'm figuring this out on my own." And about 2 months after consistently reading, it's literally just a little dry patch on each side now. I very rarely get super itchy. It's very like unconscious now, where it's like, oh, whatever. I don't get the red patches. I mean, I'm sure it could come up if, I'm not distracting myself or I really allow those ruminating thoughts to continue, but now they're really obvious to me.
Yeah.
Like once I was like, oh, well, that's where they are. That's where this is coming from. Now I can, when they do start to come up, I start to just sit with it and process it and like, okay, you know what? This sucks, but we're here. What do you want to do? Do you want to choose your suffering, Emily? Do you want to be in bed as a soother, or do you want to listen to him scream and cry? Which would you prefer? I was like, obviously, I'd rather lay in bed quietly. We'll go just go with that one, right?
Yeah,
I,
well, distraction, it definitely works.
definitely helped. It's made
Or
it to the
it's just
point where
it's
I can be
about what you're
comfortable.
focusing on, and like you have to break
Yes.
that cycle. And
And
so,
I really I really started talking to my husband about it because I wanted to break the isolation of it. And I
mm,
told him I was like, I don't like laying in you get to go out and watch your shows and listen to music and do whatever because our oldest is already sleeping, but I was like, I have to sit here and wait and try and stay awake so that I can actually get, 5 minutes maybe to myself. Right. And so having that component of I was like, I need you to come in with me sometimes. Like obviously if our daughter's still awake, you're handling her, but if you're not, I need you to come in with me. I don't want to be isolated in this anymore. He's both our kids. As much as I'm the soother, you're the support. Get in here, dude. Because I was like, I need people. I was like, I'm bored. I'm one who really needs a lot of mental stimulation, and laying in bed as a
yeah.
soother is not very mentally stimulating. The books
I
really
mean,
help
I
with
think
that.
it's common for women to have
Mhm.
symptoms around like breastfeeding and feeling stuck in bed. And I've definitely worked with several women, and I also have experienced this myself. There was like one week where I was feeling similarly, like I'm just like so frustrated with having to like lay in this position.
Mhm.
It wasn't,
Oh,
I don't mind
yeah.
the nurse, like the position that I had to be in all night. And
Yeah.
and then I went and I was like feeling so tight everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I'm so tight because
Mhm.
I have to be in this position. And then I was like, no, Frey, you're very tight because you are like engaging in this motor conflict. Like every
Yes.
time you're like lying down to like go to sleep at night and you're co-sleeping and nursing. And luckily because I had like figured that pattern out with several other women, like clients around like like stiffness, tightness and nursing,
Oh, yeah.
it was easy for me to identify. So, in your case, it's this rash, a separation conflict. For another woman, it might be a motor conflict or something.
Mhm.
But I'm sure many mothers listening know know the story.
Of not wanting to lay in bed as a soother. And I get it. And I think, that is just part of motherhood. We do have to surrender to it and accept it. And that's just kind of part of it. And so I asked myself, what would I rather?
Yeah.
Would I rather the throes of weaning, which has been extremely difficult with my son compared to my daughter?
Mhm.
Or do I, find a distraction, find an alternative that is going to kind of work for both of us?
Yeah.
And so reading, having my husband come in and just hang out. If my son decides to stay up really late for some reason, I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna watch our shows in bed while he uses me as a soother. He'll fall asleep to the sound. He doesn't care. And I was like, we're gonna do those things so that I can still actually do them while I'm a soother. And it really did clear up majority of the psoriasis. And then you're a bit of a happier person because you still get to do
Yeah.
some things. The reading really helped though, and I found the not being on my phone because I think while being in bed, sometimes you scroll your for me, I would stay on my phone so that I could stay awake, so that I could hop back out of bed and have time to myself. So I would use the phone to stay awake. But then I'm looking at what everybody else is doing, and I'm going, oh, I wish I could go do that.
Mhm.
Oh, I wish I could. Oh man, look at them. Their kids go to bed at a decent time. Why can't mine do that? And I'm stuck in this, I don't want to be here anymore. And it would really start to cycle. And so I was like, okay, no more phone in the room while I'm nursing or just at all in general. No more phone in the room. If I want to stay awake, I'll read a book. If I need my husband to be in there because I need, support from another human being, I will tell him that. If the little guy is deciding that he's going to stay up late and I still, need some downtime to just brain them and watch a TV show, I'm just going to do it anyways. It's not like he's going to bed. I'm not going to fight him on it. We might as well all enjoy some time together, you know what I mean? And instead of trying to fight against
Yeah.
the flow.
Yeah.
And then I just constantly remind myself too, he's not going to nurse when he's 30. He'll give up eventually. With my daughter, it was so much easier to wean her. And it's funny because the rash had started with her too.
Hmm.
And it took me a while to think back to this. I had
Okay.
chalked it up to being new deodorant. But
Oh.
because it was so quick for her to wean, it stayed the size of a quarter. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
never got any bigger and it didn't spread. Whereas with my son, like it's been a totally different ballgame. My daughter was like, okay, we're not doing this anymore, and she'd fuss for a little bit and then be on her way. She didn't care. Whereas like my son, like
Yeah, yeah.
we're the world is ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. So the original conflict probably happened with your daughter, but then
Yes.
got
Of
made.
not wanting to be a soother. I don't want to lay here anymore. Like just stop nursing. And it's because, that position you lay in, they pretty much lay up in your armpit. Right? Doesn't matter what side it is, they're pretty much up in your armpit. And that's exactly where that rash was.
Cool. Awesome. Another
Mhm.
exciting story. Okay, well, should we finish off with the like sinus fever,
Yeah.
flu
That
or
was a
whatever you want to
I
call it?
don't think I had ever been that sick in my life, not gonna lie. I'm grateful I knew GNM because at some points I was like, okay, this is a bit intense. I was pretty much bedridden for like 2 or 3 days with a fever. It was awful. Okay, so last year, August, my husband and my daughter went to Ontario for 11 or 12 days or something like
And
that.
this is the same 11, 12
Same
days
time.
caused the
Yeah.
mass pain flare
Yeah.
up.
Yo, yeah. So that flare up happened during this healing phase. It was an intense like 2 weeks, not gonna.
Mhm.
So cue them leaving to Ontario. Everything's happy go lucky. It's me and my son. He's 1.5 at the time. So we have goats, chickens, rabbits, ducks, quail, um, and then gardens and stuff to maintain. We have a whole homestead to maintain. And so it was just me and my little guy. Oh, the dogs and the inside animals. We got a lot. Um, it was up to me to maintain all of that with my 1.5-year-old in tow. So the first day, they take off, everything goes well. We lay down at night, and I have this thought of what if somebody were to drive up and try and break in? Or what if they were just, really creepy and I couldn't make them go away? Like, what if this happened? I was saying, is the door locked? Are the dogs inside? Like, I became very hyper vigilant of like, what if somebody shows up? And so I would have that pretty much every time we would lay down to go to bed, either while I was nursing him for his nap or to go to sleep at night. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking of it, like, and I was like deadbolting the door, which is not something we typically do, but because I was by myself, like, I became like, what if? What if this happens? And I gotta tell myself, Emily, you're being irrational. Like, we've lived here for 5 years and this has never happened. It's not going to. You're okay. But I kept having that thought of what if. And so when we'd be outside, I noticed that, like, I was really looking around, kept double checking the driveway. Is anybody coming? Like, I was deadbolting our door. I had become very, very hyper vigilant of, is there somebody coming to hurt us? And what if they do? Or is there an animal coming to hurt us? Like, we had a bear a few years ago, and I was like, what if a bear comes? And I was like, what if I don't know how to use the gun and I can't figure it out? Or what
Mhm.
if, some guy comes and he's trying to break in and I can't figure it out? And it was a very, very survival of, we are by ourselves, we are very isolated. What if I can't? And what if this happens? And so I had that for 11 days straight. And it wasn't like super intense where I was like fearful, like, not going outside during the day or anything. We had regular days. It really only happened when I would lay down in bed with my son. And I think it was because that's where we're most vulnerable. I can't see what's going on outside. I can't just hop up and like run and go do something. I think that's just where we were most vulnerable. And that's where that thought really started to come. And so that was about it for the whole 11 days. Cue my husband and my daughter coming home. I think day 1 or 2, I didn't really notice any symptoms, maybe start of a runny nose. But by day 3, it was like I had to, like, I couldn't even open my eyes. Everything was so intense. My headache was so bad. My fever was so high. I was like, I'm not getting out of bed. I don't think I got out of bed for 2 days, just except to go like to the bathroom. I didn't really eat much. Um, but I had so much intense pain in my head from all the sinus activity, from being like sniffing around. Is there anybody in my territory? Is somebody coming up? Like, do I need to be scared? And then having that death fright conflict of, what if somebody gets us? Like, And what if that was to happen? And so that's where all the lung stuff came from. Like I wouldn't say I was having trouble breathing, but it was very tight chested, just coughing up all kinds of nasty crap. And, coughing with a fever and a headache feels just that much worse. And then because I also had the arthritis flare up on top of it. It was a very intense 2 weeks, but it was probably 2 or 3 days of solid fever, and then another week and a half after that of like the symptoms taking forever to dissipate. And I think it was because I was conflict active like completely for those 11 days that the healing phase took so much longer. I was very aware of it though once I came out of the fever. I started Sherlocking. And I was like, oh, okay, where did this come from? I was like, I don't typically get sick like this. I was like, what happened? And so I went and I started looking up, death threat conflict in the territory fear, and I was like, there it is. I was like, there's the thoughts. And they instantly came to me of the what if somebody comes and like, I can't save us. What if
Yeah,
somebody's like coming to
that's
murder
so
us
like
or something?
defining, right? That just kind of like vague sense of like possible
Yeah,
danger.
it's a possibility because we're by ourselves. My husband's not here to protect me, and he's my protector. Dude's like 6'2". I'm 5'1". Okay, I'm small. I'm not taking anybody down. He's our protector very much so. So him not being home, I was very, very aware that we were very unprotected
It's
compared to how
actually
we normally
completely
would be.
taking me back to when I used to be a farmer. And one point in time, I was like looking after like 120 goats, like in the middle of nowhere by myself in the winter. And there was some very like suspect, it's a very long story, but suspect stuff going on with like neighbors and the goats and
Hmm.
things. And when my boyfriend came out, I got so sick. It's a
Yeah.
very similar thing. Like you're just kind of always like on edge and nervous.
Very, very hyper vigilant, very like constantly checking and like not even super aware that I'm constantly checking. Like it took me thinking back to it to really realize that that's what I was doing. Like every time I'm in the garden, you hear a noise and like I'm looking. And normally I'm not like that.
Yeah, it's so common for mothers like this. Like a lot of
Mhm.
mothers will start when they're pregnant or postpartum to have like quote unquote sinus allergies all of a sudden. Like and a lot of like, just either very intense or like low key runny nose, like stuff going
Mhm.
on. And it's because you're so hypervigilant. A lot, some women are and some women are very intensely around like their children and danger and whether it's like, the
Mhm.
creepy man or the car that's going to come out
Yeah.
or potential drowning or whatever it is, but like it's very you could see why like these symptoms that we um kind of like lump into a cold, let's say. So,
Mhm.
okay, territorial fear, the bronchi, we've got the sinuses, often like eyes, this kind of stuff. It's about very often that like sensing for potential danger, right? It's like our alert system. And
Yeah.
it's easily activated by things like travel, let's say, or being in new places or being in some kind of alone space,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so anyways, great story again. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say? It's been great.
I don't think so. It's been really nice to talk about. I don't really have a lot of GNM friends, so it was really nice to talk about it and like dive into some things. I hope somebody gets something from the stories.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.